The new school year begins next week here in Korea. It's an especially exciting month for freshmen at universities who are preparing for a new chapter in their lives. Today, we invite David Tizzard, professor of Korean Studies at Seoul Women's University and Hanyang University, to talk about Korean culture classes as well as culture on the university campuses here in Korea. Hello and welcome, Professor Tizzard.
Thank you for having me. I heard you guys talking about retro before. That's why you brought an old guy like me in to explain things. No. Thank you very much. Yes.
Well, Professor Tizzard, most universities in Korea will be kicking off their new school year or semester next week, March 4th. Maybe there's a slight differences depending on which school. But are you excited to meet your new students? Are you getting prepared to meet your new students?
Absolutely. It comes round again. I'm really looking forward to it. I've been preparing. I had a shave. I'm trying to lose all the weight that I put on over winter. In terms of preparing for the classes, I've been looking at the influence of Baek Nam-jun, the visual artist from the 70s and 80s. I've been watching the movies of Park Chan-wook, particularly I'm a Cyborg, but It's Okay, starring Rain, which is a brilliant movie. I've been studying the Korean communist movement from the 1920s and 30s, and then looking at introversion and extroversion as big 5 personality traits across culture. So lots of reading I've been doing to get ready.
Very interesting. Now, Professor Tizzard, you mainly teach Korean culture.
Yep.
With the Korean wave or hallyu sweeping across the world, do you really feel how the interest in Korean culture classes has been increasing?
It's why I'm so busy, to be honest. I'm teaching 9 classes again this semester, which is not usual for a professor, I must say. And I was just back in the United Kingdom, and I was amazed by how easily you could find Korean products. You could find Korean pop-up stores and things like this, and eat the bunshik and the food. It was so different from, let's say, 10 years ago. When I'm in my classes and students do their sort of self-introductions or they reveal who they are, what I've found very interesting, especially over the last semester and a half, is that students have been telling me, I used to be a K-pop fan. And that's been something that I've been paying attention to, where I think obviously people still have a great love for K-pop. It's still very popular, but I'm not sure it's at the height that it was, let's say, when BTS were topping the billboards with that trio of songs, Butter Dynamite. And so I'm noticing that people are focusing on Korea more broadly. Korea as a country, it's entered their consciousness, maybe through K-pop, and that's been a bridge into people saying, now, what is this country? Where does it come from? Why are they divided? What's going on with the politics? So while the interest is changing, that's the fascination for me.
That is fascinating.
That's extremely fascinating to hear because, you know, back when you and I were both younger, no one really heard of Korea, right? We were very much the one Asian country that no one heard. Now, Professor, you just mentioned you are teaching 9 classes, which I don't know where you would be able to do that on a 5-day routine. And you also mentioned what you've been studying up on. Can you tell us what classes you are teaching this semester and how have your classes been received so far by students, maybe also from the foreign students?
Of course, they're received marvelously. All students love my classes.
Of course. Yes.
I'm teaching 6, my main job is at Seoul Women's University. I'm teaching 6 courses there and 3 at Hanyang University. These courses include contemporary Korean studies, digital modern life in Korea, East and West culture in Korea, hallyu and the Korean wave. So I've been taking notes about the new SM group. Thank you very much for that. And modern issues in Korea. Lots of Korean history, culture, modernity, history as well.
And I'm especially interested in the hallyu class that you teach. We could cooperate a lot on that front.
It's a fascinating thing. And even for Korean students, I'm sort of showing them videos of Sotaeji and explaining this. And this is the first time they've seen it. We also watch things like Winter Sonata in class, and so get the origins of the Korean wave. And my students will tell me that their mum used to watch this, and that's fascinating because I'm not only sort of teaching young people about the history of hallyu, but I'm, in a way, and this sounds a bit weird, I'm helping them connect with their parents and their aunties and uncles by showing what the Korean wave was before, which I find nice. And so, you also asked, Walter, how is it being received? The classes are full. I mean, I'm only busy because of people's love in Korea. And so I feel very grateful, and I try to work hard to give the best that I can. I will say this very quickly, if I may. When I start the semester, I'm always caught by the idea that I could teach 16 weeks and I could say, all of the negative things about Korea, and I could say like the birth rate, the mental health, and all of this, and celebrities and suicide. I could spend 16 weeks doing gukbong, which is this really overly patriotic perspective of Korea. And then I always ask myself, so what should I do? How do I teach Korea? How should I explain Korea to all of these people that are interested in it? And it's a question that constantly revolves in my mind.
Well, that actually brings me to my next question, Professor.
Yeah.
With all this variety of subjects that you do, what do you exactly want your students to take away from your classes?
Knowledge, perspectives, variety. I want them to be curious, and I want them to work hard. I want them to read. I want them to leave, and they always told me this actually, I want them to leave class with more questions than answers, and they find it frustrating, but I sometimes sit there with students from Indonesia wearing hijabs, with people from blue hair from the west coast of America, and Korean students, and what they realize by this is that there are many perspectives in the world. There are many different takes, and so by studying Korea and by looking at it, what students realize is they're actually learning more about themselves. They're learning that their worldview and their opinions and how they perceive things is often it's a result of where they grew up and how they were raised. And when they see how other people were raised and grew up and things like this, they realize the world's a big place. And so one of the things that I want my students to take away is that you need to discover who you are. And a great way to do that is by looking at something like Korea. It becomes a mirror for our own existential journey, perhaps.
Very interesting. And I find it also especially intriguing that you can connect generations through hallyu. And also, I would love to have the students ask many questions, because in Korea, people don't ask many questions, like in Western culture, for instance. So we have still many questions for you, Professor Tizzard. And I think it must be a kind of unique experience to be teaching Korean culture as a foreigner and to Korean students. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
It's a privilege, and I do find it funny when I have to explain aspects of Korean history to Korean people. There's an inside-out perspective in sociology that, you know, sort of when a fish is in water, a fish doesn't know what water is because it's been immersed in it, and only by going outside of a culture can you have a special vantage point. I have a great love for Korea. I think there's so much good about this country, particularly the history and the development and what it's achieved. I mean, it's easy to throw shade on Korea in modern life, but it's a fabulous country of people. And so to be able to explain Korea to young people, it's a privilege, and I'm very fortunate to be able to do it. In terms of the relationship and asking questions, we sometimes sort of think that the students that ask questions and are most vocal in class, they're the ones that are turned on and smart. But, you know, if you read the literature, if you read the psychological literature, you realize there are many different ways of studying. And the introverts in class are not necessarily lesser students or doing less work. They just engage with the world differently. And so as a professor, it's my job to sort of recognize that. It's not always about asking questions, but it's about being turned on, being tuned in to what's happening, not just always saying the first thing on your mind, because that's not always right sometimes. Sometimes you do need to rethink. So I love teaching Korean studies, not only to Korean students, but to people from all over the world, and of course, to myself, because I still need to learn.
Well, listening to what you just mentioned about, it's not always about, as you mentioned before, it is great to have many questions, but again, it's not all about having those questions. You can engage without those questions. Yeah. So that already shows how much you are aware of the different, the different mindsets here in Korea and other country students, of course, as well. Yeah. So now we want to shift gears a little bit on the campus life, especially the experience for freshmen or 새내기 here in Korea. So what would stand out for you? Because it's been a while that I've been at a university campus. I guess things have changed. So what can you tell us about the freshman life?
Lots of ice Americanos, energy drinks. Cigarettes have been replaced by vapes. And the campuses, they're probably the same. There won't have been much change. You know, students are still students. They're required to come in and do their things. The campus is generally quite lively. I love being around young people all the time because I'm getting all of these different attitudes. Like like you mentioned about, you saw some people with fashion from 20 years ago. I've seen T-shirts get higher over the last year. Jeans get baggier. Skinny jeans have gone out. I like watching Bermuda shorts have come in. So I like watching the fashion changes. I like seeing people come in and do all of these things. The university campus, it's also become political in the last year or so. I mean, there's often been this lament that, you know, in the 70s and 80s, you had these Minjung people, the students were the vanguard of Korean democracy, and they've all gone the way of social media and looking into their phones and becoming zombies. That's definitely not true. If you've heard and seen about what's happening on Korean university campuses, these students are engaged, they're turned on, they have a voice, and they use it whether you like it or not. So that's the university campus.
I can also imagine that many of the students these days would be playing the 아파트 game, you know, the random, the drinking games on the campus.
It's really easy though, isn't it? Because once you know how many people are in the group, you just say a number. Sorry, I shouldn't say bad things about the apata game, but
they do have these OTs and MTs and those kinds of things when you start the semester. They gather together, play, have fun, as well as studying, of course. And
like, I feel like there's a closer relationship between professors and students of the past. It was very much, especially in Korea, it was very much the teacher was the teacher and the students were the students. What do you do to make yourself more approachable to your students?
Should I be approachable or should I be intimidating? It's a genuine question. My international students, the majority of them will call me David. From Singapore, they'll call me Prof. That's the culture there. Most of my Korean students will still call me Gyosunim and bow to me. And so it's a cultural thing. But what you're addressing there, Walter, this power distance between professors and students, I've heard some professors, they encourage their students in Korea, in Korean, to use only Panmal. This like 평등어, this equal language, and that's required. And some students love it, some students find it very uncomfortable. And so when I was talking about this introversion, extroversion, and being conscious of it, I know that some students need a boost, and they need confidence, and they need building up and telling them you can do it. Other students need the stick almost. They need to be told, you need to do more, you're wasting your talent. And so it's not always about being approachable. I think it's about being real. It's about seeing people as individuals rather than a sort of anonymous block of people. It's about looking at each person there and saying, I see you, I recognize you, and this is how I'm going to communicate with you. So some students, they still like the big power distance. Others, they don't. And so it's become more personal, I think.
Probably it's different how you approach each of the single students in your classes. But I saw with my own eyes that you really click well with the students when you invited me to your program before, Professor Tizzard. And I really could see that they were not forced to do that. They really liked to be a panel of your show. And that's when I really felt like, oh, it's like just like friends to some extent. But I guess it depends on what kind of students you have or what kind of MBTIs they have. It's really not an easy task, I would have to imagine. But thank you very much, Professor Tizzard, for sharing your thoughts today. And we wish you the best for the new school year.
Thank you very much. Study hard, everybody.
All right. And thank you, Walter. As always, we'll see you back here tomorrow.
See you tomorrow.